Welcome to the Ortho Joe Podcast, a joint production of the Journal of Bone and Joint Surgery and Ortho Evidence. Join hosts Mohit Bhandari and Marc Swankowski as they discuss current topics and publications in the world of orthopedics and beyond.
Morning, Mo. Where are you? You must be home.
I'm at home. I'm in Burlington, just near McMaster University, about 30 minutes out, and it's a good month. It's a good month. I've tried to curb travel this month as much as possible because August.
How many rounds of golf have you had in?
I'm trying to. You know what? The problem is the more rounds of golf I do, Marc, the worse I get, and I don't know why that is. There's some sort of inverse proportionality to how it happens. No. And actually, if I don't play for a while, I come back and play pretty well, which is crazy. Anyways,
because it's a game that's played on the 6 inches between the ears.
Yeah. Yeah. So you see, and in my case, it's probably only 4 inches between the ears. So you see, like it's just a problem. They're just a problem. I unfortunately don't have coffee this morning, too, Marc, in that I've been kind of barricaded into the house. Can't get out because there's concrete work happening. So.
Yeah, well, I'm about to start clinic, and I went and made coffee. So what's wrong with you? Do you not have coffee in the house? Or?
Yes. See, the funny thing is, we had discussed that you weren't going to bring that up before we went live, and there you go. You brought it up. You're right. I could do that. I don't know why, but you know what? I just have an allegiance to Tim Hortons. I just won't do it. I feel like I'm. Anyways, I'll leave it at that.
Canadian nationalism at its worst.
So we have today a great guest, and we're going to chat about leadership, Marc. I know something that's very important to you, and I think to many of those who are listening in today. Olufemi Ayeni is a professor, and he is the chair of the Division of Orthopaedic Surgery at McMaster University, and is the 79th, just inaugurated actually, as the 79th president of the Canadian Orthopaedic Association. So he's got lots and lots of experience helping mentor others, but more importantly, I think he's been thinking, well, more than recently, globally. And Femi, I wonder if you might speak to, I don't know if Marc is aware of this, and I'm sure others may not be, of what you've done in the recent past to try to really promote opportunities to teach leadership to those that might not find it easily accessible.
No, thank you for, first of all, inviting me. It's great to have conversations. And it's actually ironic to talk about leadership with people who are natural leaders that I've looked up to. So it's almost like a bit of a role reversal here. But, thank you for recognizing the recent achievements. But, importantly, to move forward, I was always thinking about leadership, mentorship, and I'm somebody who has a very difficult time saying no to tasks, especially for a young person who's looking for assistance and guidance. And when that happens, when I have to say, just a little too busy right now, I sort of, feel like there's got to be another way where I can help, inform strategies on how to build your career, how to become successful in your field and whatnot. So recently I started the Notch Academy, which is, www.thenotchacademy.com, a site that has a lot of social media, free tips really on how to develop your craft as far as leadership and even engaging mentoring and mentoring others and being mentored. So it really is about, to me, recently, when somebody needs help and we all have this shortage of time, which is the most precious resource, how do you scale mentorship globally without having to schedule a Zoom call with every single person who reaches out to either Marc or yourself? I'm sure you get emails from the globe all over every day, all days, asking for your time, and it's impossible to delegate that to everybody. So really that concept of how do you scale mentorship and develop leadership across the globe to people who are looking to develop without having to really sacrifice your own personal time while doing that is what triggered me looking at developing the Notch Academy.
So maybe I'll just follow up with that. So typically what happens, let's say at most institutions, right, there'll be a situation where there'll be an individual, a trainee, a medical student, could be a resident, can be early career faculty, could be senior faculty. They're identified as individuals who the department or the institution would like to support. And they say, hey, there's a course somewhere and it's going to require some, commitment of time. It could be days, could be up to a week or so, Femi. And that is, you're right, it's challenging to get people who are very busy to take time away, even though it's probably important that they do, to do these courses. So Is your model one that says you don't necessarily have to leave, and that we can be doing the same way? Actually, if I take a step back to Gordon Guyatt, for example, way back 1990s, where it was almost like EBM on the go, right? Which is, yes, you can take the big courses to get the fundamentals, but what happens after that? Like, you've got to maintain and sustain it. And, it's almost like teaching at the bedside, teaching when you have a moment here, teaching in between cases. Is that how you're thinking of leadership?
I think so. I think, in this new world that we are living, where things are consumed in short segments of time, where you really have little snippets, 30-second videos or summaries and whatnot. And I'm sure in your journal work, you're seeing that the consumption of even educational research material is now being compressed into shorter amounts of time. Really, leadership courses, mentorship, developing your craft in a consumable way where you're not, leaving your jurisdictions and traveling extensively, and really just on your own, on demand type, access to getting tips and how to develop yourself, I think is something that could be very useful. And likewise, when you're talking across the globe, like you mentioned, it's sometimes difficult with the time, just trying to schedule a meeting with somebody from any part of the world where you have a 6, 8, 10-hour time difference, really having that ability for them to access, those concepts that are so important in development of their own time zone is also quite important. So really that on-demand profile and really having somebody being able to consume something in a very condensed way, starting off with, ideas and tips and tricks and short videos, and then eventually some coursework and then some live events. That's sort of how I hope this grows.
Can you tell us a little bit more about what resources are available and what's the name, Notch? What?
Yeah, the Notch Academy really was all about, just looking at horticulture, agriculture. And when you want to stimulate a branch growth, you can, look at the stem, you just notch it, and then all of a sudden a branch sprouts out. So conceptually, if you're trying to grow and develop as a surgeon, as an academic, you need a bit of difficulty in order to grow. You need some turbulence at times to stimulate growth, and to be in that difficult environment, to have that challenge you faced, and you had that difficult fixation of that fracture, but then you get better because you learned from the difficulties you had. You reviewed why it was so hard and how you got better. So really, it's all about that concept of continuous growth. Or understanding it takes a little bit of turbulence to develop. And the Notch Academy, as you said, NOTCH, is an academy that's really on all the various social media platforms. Where you'll see for now some videos where we're just trying to get the basic fundamentals of what I've learned from my journey, different for everybody, but at least what I've learned and tips and tricks on how to develop. And then secondarily, you start to see that, events are coming, workshops are coming, and really trying to engage global approaches to solving difficult problems we all face, because that's something, we all, face as challenges, and developing and transitioning from a stage in life where you have all the amazing technical expertise, you've done the fellowships and the residency, and then you're in a job, quote unquote, and then it's not good enough to just have the technical knowledge. You now have to work within a team. You have to work with others. You have to be led. You have to be a leader. And sometimes in those transition points is where people get into difficulties, because that transitions are always quite tough. But now you're moving into a stage in your career where you're starting to become somebody people look up to and depend upon. And it's not always so intuitive. It's a learned skill to get good at that.
I mean, what are the common questions? I'm sure people are directly communicating and sending in, advice. Hey, can you do a bit on this? Can you do a bit on that? What are the common things that the global audience that you're trying to reach to are asking? Like, what kinds of issues?
Yeah, I would say the biggest one would be work-life integration. Like, how do you have a successful home and personal life at the same time of professional life? Like, what's the balance? Do you separate them completely? Do you integrate them so they're weaved into each other? What works? And it's very different for everybody. But I think as long as, you start off by defining what your success is and what it looks like, and then you can almost reverse engineer the steps to get there. So how to really balance time and, integrate what you do at work, what you do in your home life, personal life, that's probably one big one. And then I think, just globally, we are increasingly in a world where people are moving across different jurisdictions for training, for work and whatnot, and how to really, ensure that, as you're moving, it's as seamless as possible as you're getting your fellowships across, continents, as you're getting, jobs across continents as well. If you're learning one of course, so people really want to know, like, what is it like and how is it like to really get in a seamless way without too much, difficulty when you're transitioning from one place to the other.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier in the
go.
conversation that you'd been seeking and thinking about and seeking information and thinking about leadership for a while.
Yeah.
In my experience, you're an unusual person in that regard. Most of the younger surgeons I run into are not thinking about leadership and how to provide information for others. They're worried about their practice and work-life balance. I agree that's number one usually, but I wonder, what are your thoughts about, are you unusual? I think you are, but I don't know what your experience is in our field of orthopedic surgery about individuals who are concerned, in their early part of their career about leadership issues. My experience is mostly about the practice and work-life stuff. So, are you an unusual cat? Is my question.
I would, you know what? My siblings would say, yes, I am. So I would probably take that on as yes. I've always had the thought process of, well, I grew up with 4 siblings. So naturally, I had to look at how each one tended to respond to the same offerings in a very different way. And so, I always tell the story of, if you have a sandwich, I have one brother who will cut off all the crust and not touch it at all. The other one wants all the crust and will eat it all. So they are all so different, despite being, from the same parentage and everything else. So I think that when it came to leadership, I recognized that when you're trying to lead people, it's very difficult to have one strategy for everybody. And you have to recognize their nuances and you have to tailor your messaging across. And so that really was the first thought process, because I'm number 2 of 5 in recognizing that that's actually very interesting to try and figure out how to get people to work together to solve bigger problems. So coming from that background naturally, I then, with my training, obviously, Mo was a great mentor to me. And in learning research from him, I saw how did he lead his teams with all these different research platforms to succeed and have a department or a division that had leading research across multiple subspecialties. So again, that was another sort of inside light bulb went up when there's something that people who are very successful do in leading teams and developing groups of people that come from all sorts of parts of the world and whatnot to work together. And that then led me to think, that is probably one of the greatest accomplishments, is to achieve a goal with people with different skill sets, different demographics, et cetera, and getting them to work together and then to have a successful grant or even procedure at the end of it all. So yes, I think unusual because, as you said, first port of call is get your surgery done, make sure the x-rays look amazing, get your clinical practice going, and then maybe a little bit of academic educational work or a lot of it. But then that leadership piece, I think, comes later on. But I think that, and naturally too, when you first do clinical work, you make a difference on a patient level. And then when you start adding the academic layer on top of that, you can influence your peers potentially. But then to try and make a big system difference, to try and impact on a larger scale, if you can develop those leadership skills, you can then apply your clinical experience, your academic experience, take that into a leadership position, or like the Canadian Orthopedic Association, and then try to make a national or international difference. So I think it really dovetails nicely as you're building your practice to think about, wow, you know what? I did help that patient. I can't help my colleagues, but I can then move it on and help the nation. And if you kind of have that sort of growth mindset, I think it'll be something that naturally flows eventually. So it's not something people think about earlier on, but naturally the thought process does come about later on.
I think you just confirmed you're an unusual cat.
So Femi, and maybe I'll take liberty of asking one question and request Marc to maybe have a few final comments or a question if he wants to finish off with here. But what advice or what's your message to sort of an early career surgeon in this particular case? And we'll see a surgeon, but it could be anyone practicing in musculoskeletal health, for example, who's just starting their career and thinking, right now, I'm just going to focus on my work. I'm going to focus on just doing what I do, not thinking of anything else. I'm going to have a blinker adherence to just my job. What's your counter argument to say you can never start too early to begin your leadership journey? And is a leadership journey only for certain people, or should everyone have a leadership journey?
I think, great question. I think everybody should have leadership skills, and it belongs in the domain of everybody's practice. And I think sometimes when people think about leadership, the first thought process is, well, leadership means you have to have a title and it has to be of something very prominent or an entity like JBGS, like both of you are, or the Canadian Orthopaedic Association or AAOS. But leadership can be in your own household. Leadership can be in the operating room where you're the surgeon and you're trying to move people, across, for example, intergenerational communication, looking at how to get the nursing staff to work with the surgical staff. So at every point, if you really take a step back, you are leading if you're a surgeon, even if you're a researcher, you're leading your team. So these are skills that don't simply belong in the domain of a big entity or big organization. They're skills that you're utilizing every day. And you may take the opportunity to scale it up to national or international levels, which is wonderful. But even if you refine how you lead and how you mentor in your own day-to-day basis, you'll find yourself making a difference, whether it's in your kids' lives, whether it's in your surgical team's lives, in the clinic space. You can make a big difference by being a better leader. And it's not always intuitive. It does take some training and learning. I'm always learning as well. But rather than say no to people who are seeking ideas on how to become better at that, that's why I'm making putting this effort out there. And I hope it helps some people and we develop global, platforms that are successful. But importantly, the future for this all, which is very, very inspired by a lot of what you've done, Mo, is really looking at the data behind it too. So, what works, what resonates, what helps? Is there a systematic approach to having data-driven leadership and mentorship training? And that's where the ultimate goal for me would be in this newer journey.
Well, I think you make a wonderful point about leadership not being just in organizations at the highest level, but locally and in your family, et cetera. That's a fantastic point, because all of us who are in our field of orthopedic surgery went into it to help patients. And if we can help others to work in teams and have a better work-life balance, I think our ability to help patients even more efficiently is what we're all after. And congratulations on this initiative and on your success in sports medicine and with the COA. And we look forward to seeing many great things from you as your career continues to mature. It's been great chatting with you, Femi.
Thank you so much for the invitation. And I welcome people to join and give us feedback, and we keep learning together. And I'd also like to congratulate both of you on exceptional careers. And I think sometimes leaders don't get told thank you enough. And I'll just say thank you for all you've done in enhancing orthopedic care across the globe. You continue to do it, and that's very appreciated, even if you don't recognize that you have an impact beyond your local jurisdictions. Thank you.
What's the website again for Notch?
www.thenotchacademy.com.
Fantastic.
Excellent. Thanks again, Femi, for everything you've done. And we'll be sending you another, I think you've been on with us, but another Ortho Joe coveted coffee mug. So look
yeah, you know what? I was looking for it, but my wife is taking it to her office.
Of course. Always happens.
And Mo,
They're valuable.
Good luck on your walk or your bicycle ride to Tim Hortons.
Thank you.
Uber.
Oh,
no, just joking. No. All right. Cheers, everyone. Have a great day.
Take care. Bye.